Imagine it's 10 years from now. You're sitting at your kitchen table on a Tuesday morning. No alarm, no commute. Coffee's hot. Your phone buzzes. Dividend payment received, $312. That's the dream. That's exactly what you were building toward. Except the groceries you bought last week cost 40% more than they did when you started. Your rent went up $600, and that $312, it's the same $312 you were getting 2 years ago. It didn't grow, it just stayed. The passive income dream is real. The math behind it is not. Before you close this, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this is another video from someone who hates dividend investing and wants to tell you it's stupid. It's not that. Dividend investing is a legitimate strategy. It's been around for 100 years. There are real investors who've built real wealth with it. I'm not here to tell you it's wrong. I'm here to show you the version of this strategy that the YouTube thumbnails and the live off dividends accounts never explain. Because there's a gap between what dividend investing promises and what it actually delivers. And that gap has a price tag most people never calculate. Here's what we're covering. First, what the real numbers look like when you run the dividend strategy all the way through, including the parts people skip. Second, the strongest argument for dividend investing and exactly where that argument quietly falls apart. Third, the specific situations where dividends are genuinely the right tool. And at the end, I'll give you a 3-question framework to figure out whether this strategy actually fits your situation, or whether you're building toward a number that won't do what you think it will. Meet David. He's 34, marketing manager, makes $88,000 a year. He's been following dividend investing content for 2 years. He's convinced. He wants passive income. He wants out of the 9-to-5. David puts $40,000 into a dividend-focused portfolio. Average yield, 4.1%. That generates $1,640 per year in dividends, or $136 per month. He reinvests everything. He contributes $600 a month on top. After 5 years, David has roughly $82,000 in the portfolio. His annual dividend income is $3,362, about $280 per month. He's been doing this for 5 years. He's contributed $76,000 total. He's making $280 a month in dividends. Here's the number David never calculated. Federal tax on qualified dividends, 15%. State tax in his state, 5%. So that $3,362 becomes $2,690 after tax. That's $224 a month. Inflation over those 5 years averaged 4.3% annually. The purchasing power of $224 today is equivalent to about $181 in the dollars he started with. David has been doing everything right for 5 years. He's making the equivalent of $181 a month in real purchasing power. That's $6 a day. He's not wrong for trying, but nobody showed him this version of the math before he started. Here's what the dividend content never addresses directly. To actually live off dividends, let's say you need $4,000 a month after tax. You need roughly $1.4 million invested at a 4% yield, accounting for taxes. At $600 a month in contributions starting from zero, at average total returns of 8% annually, that takes 34 years. David is 34. He'll be 68. That's not a passive income strategy. That's a retirement plan with extra steps. Here's the best argument for dividend investing, and I want to give it to you honestly because it's genuinely compelling. Dividends are real cash. They're not paper gains. When the market drops 30%, your dividend check still arrives. You don't have to sell anything at a loss to generate income. The psychological stability of receiving actual cash, regardless of what the portfolio is doing, keeps investors in the game longer. And that's true. That argument is correct. But here's what it quietly assumes. It assumes that receiving cash is more important than maximizing total return. And for most people in the accumulation phase, under 55, still working, still contributing, that assumption is wrong. Here's the math. A total market index fund returned an average of 10.7% annually over the last 30 years. A dividend-focused fund like VYM returned approximately 8.9% over the same period. That 1.8% gap compounded over 30 years on $100,000 is the difference between $2,190,000 and $1,400,000. That's $790,000 left on the table. In exchange for the psychological comfort of receiving quarterly checks that you were going to reinvest anyway, the cash feels real. The opportunity cost is invisible. That's exactly why this is such an effective trap. And there's another hidden assumption. The stability argument assumes dividends don't get cut. In 2020, over 40% of dividend-paying companies in the S&P 500 reduced or suspended their dividend payments. The cash you were counting on, gone. At exactly the moment when you needed stability most. I promise to be honest. Here's the honest part. There are real situations where dividend investing is the right primary strategy. If you are already retired or within 5 years of retirement, dividend income that arrives without forcing you to sell assets is genuinely valuable. Sequence of returns risk, the danger of selling shares at a loss early in retirement, is real and serious. Dividends reduce that risk. If you are in a tax-advantaged account like a Roth IRA and you are over 59 and a half, the tax drag disappears entirely. The stability argument becomes much stronger when the government isn't taking 20% off the top. And if your primary goal is not maximum wealth accumulation, but income predictability, you're running a small business, you have irregular freelance income, you need something stable to cover a specific monthly expense, then dividend income serves a real psychological and practical function that pure total return investing doesn't. The problem isn't dividends. The problem is selling a retirement strategy to people in their 30s as a shortcut to freedom in their 40s. That's not what the math supports. Here's how the typical path actually goes. Year 1. You find the dividend investing content. It clicks. You open a brokerage account. You build a watch list of high-yield stocks. You feel like you found the answer. Year 2. You're getting quarterly payments. They're small, maybe $180 in a quarter, but they feel real. You reinvest. You tell yourself you're building something. Year 3. A company in your portfolio cuts its dividend. You research a replacement. You spend 8 hours on a weekend doing this. You tell yourself this is part of the process. Year 4. You do the math. For the first time, you run the real numbers to figure out when you can actually live off this. The answer is 28 years. You adjust your expectations. You keep going. Year 5. The market has a strong year. Your dividend portfolio is up 9%. You see articles about a total market index fund that returned 24% that year. You tell yourself dividends are more stable. You're not sure you believe it anymore. Year 6. You're contributing less. Life got more expensive. The gap between where you are and where you need to be feels wider, not smaller. The dream is still there. The math isn't cooperating. No single moment was the mistake. The mistake was building a 30-year plan on a foundation that was sold as a 10-year plan. 3 questions. Answer them before you put another dollar into a dividend strategy. Most people think, am I getting paid while I wait? Quarterly payments feel like progress. The right question is, what is my total return compared to a benchmark, after tax, after inflation, over the same period? If your dividend portfolio returned 7.2% and the total market returned 10.7%, you didn't get paid while you waited. You paid to wait. Most people think, how much passive income am I generating per month? The number goes up. It feels like momentum. The right question is, what is the real purchasing power of that income in 5 years at current inflation? A number that grows from $180 to $310 over 3 years sounds like progress until you realize inflation made $310 worth $261 in the dollars you started with. Most people think, is this strategy working? They measure by whether dividends are being paid. The right question is, does this strategy match my actual time horizon and tax situation? If you're 35, in a taxable account, and 25 years from retirement, the answer is probably no. And that's not a personal failure. It's just a mismatch between the tool and the job. 3 things to take with you. Dividends are real income, but real income and optimal income are not the same thing, and for most people under 55, the gap between them is enormous. The psychological comfort of quarterly cash payments costs money. That cost is invisible in the moment and only visible in the total return comparison over decades. The question is never just, does this strategy work? It's, does this strategy work for my age, my tax situation, and my actual timeline, not the one I wish I had? If this changed how you think about it, send it to someone who's building a dividend portfolio right now and hasn't run the real numbers yet. They'll thank you in 10 years.